Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Sleep Science Friday. Today, we are talking to Professor Brigitte Holzinger, who is a psychologist and the director of the Institute for Consciousness and Dream Research in Vienna, Austria. Professor Holzinger is also an author of the training program for sleep coaching. And we would ask today to tell us more about this program and this technique.
Ludmila, hello. Thank you so much for this opportunity to introduce you to what we call sleep coaching, according to Holzinger and Glösch. That is a non-pharmacological approach for sleep disorders and sleep problems, focusing on insomnia. And the longer we work with it and on it, the more enthusiastic we become. And it's such a pleasure to work in this field. And so I'm very happy that we can introduce it to our colleagues through ESRS. Thank you, Ludmila. Thank you. I have started out over 30 years ago with a very lucky coincidence, which was that I've been trained as a Gestalt therapist in Germany, and I was almost finished with my university degree, a master's program at the University of Vienna in psychology. And I have met through that Gestalt theoretical psychotherapy program, Paul Tholey, who was the German pioneer of what he called Klartraum and what usually is called lucid dreaming. And I don't know, I was lucky, or I had this drive to try to find a stipend for basic research on lucid dreaming or Klartraum, because I thought nobody would believe me or in the topic at all if I wouldn't do the basic research for that. And I realized quickly that Paul Tholey didn't have a sleep lab. And by basic research, I mean the psychophysiological correlates of lucid dreaming. But a friend of mine told me about Stephen LaBerge, that Stephen LaBerge runs a lab, a psychological lab, where he is researching the lucid dreaming state. And Stephen LaBerge is the second pioneer at the same time from the English-speaking countries. And he was, of course, based at Stanford University Psychology Department. And I was so lucky to be able to be granted a stipend to study with him for my PhD thesis. That's how I started out with sleep research, really, because little did I know that by starting research at the Stanford University Psychology Department, I was by coincidence fallen into, so to say, the cradle of sleep research then at the time, because of course William Dement was still the head of the sleep lab, and he had founded it and developed it, and I had the great pleasure and honor to do my own research at his institute's sleep labs that he had equipped, and they were quite luxury compared to what I've seen in Austria later. It was just a pleasure, and I couldn't have done that research without Stephen LaBerge. He was incredibly generous and helpful, and along with his assistant and later, I think also private companion Lynn Levitan. And they have helped me tremendously. I had a hard time to decide whether I wanted to stay in the United States, and I could have. But I couldn't make that decision to leave Austria and Vienna for good. Leave my family, my friends, and all that, and the surroundings. So I kind of was undecided for the next few years, but. By coincidence, presented my lucid dreaming study at the founding meeting of the World Sleep Research Society. I think it was 1991, in Cannes. And there I ran into other Austrian sleep researchers. There were only 6 at the time, and I was one of them. and they founded the Austrian Sleep Research Association and asked me if I wanted to be on board. And of course, I didn't say no. So it happened so that I became a founding member of the Austrian Sleep Research Association. And from that, I started the research in psychological aspects, including dreams, in sleep in Austria. And we looked at the sleep of patients with anxiety disorders, the insomnia pattern of anxiety disorders, of eating disorders, sleep and dream patterns of people with eating disorders. And then I wanted to show that lucid dreaming is probably a very potent tool for psychotherapy. And it is, and we're still not really, we have only started to understand that, I think. But then, that was 2002, we were able to get the grant for the research project about lucid dreaming as a tool for the treatment of nightmares. And in a nutshell, the most exciting finding there was that we could lead a group of people in 10 sessions, group sessions, from heavily disturbed sleep to to a regular sleep quality overall. And that was amazing to me in 2002, because back then I only had heard of a pharmacological approach for treating insomnia. And at the same time, I noticed, because of course the international connection to me has always been extremely important. You know, there was only 6 researchers. Well, now there are 100 researchers in Austria, but still, Austria is not a very big country. So I lived on and had to only kind of breathe with the international contacts. And there I attended ESRS conferences and several, and enjoyed them greatly, of course, at the world conferences as well. And through those conferences, I met a group of psychologists, and the psychologists have always been quite important as for the basic research in the field of sleep research, who have developed approaches, just behavioral approaches, psychological approaches to treat insomnia, and have been able to show that these approaches were at least as efficient as the pharmacological approaches. Of course, this was first of all Charles Morin, Colin Espy, Leon Leck from Australia, Michael Perlis, and I was so impressed, and I was so happy that that has been shown. Evidence-based, proven research, behavioral approaches are as effective for insomnia as pharmacological approaches. And at the time, I also was very lucky, because Svenja Happe from Germany visited the neurology department at the General Hospital, and that was the sleep lab that I collaborated with. Also the sleep lab of the psychiatry department. I collaborated with as well for the research projects they all have done in the sleep labs there. And Svenja Happe had the idea as a neurologist to have a look whether the sleep restriction program is can be applied to the patients of the neurology department who have been resistant to pharmacological therapy. Of course, I was enthusiastic and open for this, and I was a psychotherapist already, so we could do this in a psychotherapeutic practice. And we had not many people, 6 people, but they all had been resistant to, they had been treated for insomnia for a long time. They all had been long-time sufferers from insomnia. And of course, I was glad to do this with an MD, because, you know, sleep disorders, they had comorbidities that were quite significant. Heart disorder and neurological disorders. So that would have been not very responsible to not do this with a MD, but Svenja Happe, of course, as a neurologist, was great with doing that. So with the 6 weeks program that sleep restriction at the time was described that as we had a tremendous success. They all had increased at least with an hour more sleep as compared to the 6 weeks before. So they understood, we understood that yes, non-pharmacological treatment is very effective if done right for treating insomnia and sleep problems. So combined all this and with my background then, as I had started in 1983 with my Gestalt psychotherapy programs in 2002, by then I was a Gestalt therapist already, and I also was training other people in Gestalt therapy. And of course, that's my basis. And Gestalt therapy can be a very integrative approach for psychotherapy. And it allows for introducing other approaches that seem to be or have shown to be effective. And so I took the liberty to integrate the CBTI, which was what Charles Morin and Colin Espy have described, and others, cognitive behavioral treatment for insomnia, and integrate into my Gestalt a way of working with people in the field of psychotherapy or coaching, or actually I think some Gestalt principles should be introduced to everybody who's working with people, no matter in which context, really, because I find them so important and helpful and inspiring. And last evening I thought about what we will talk about today, and I thought, I'm not sure if CBTI isn't as strong as Gestalt, because up until now I said that the Gestalt approach is sort of the basis of 4 more ingredients for the sleep coaching. But of course, CBTI is very important, very strong, and very, very helpful. And we have now the CBTI Academy, as you know, led by Dieter Riemann and Colin Espy, where we, and I have the pleasure and honor to be part of it, where we are trying to educate, so to speak, the world with CBTI.
One question, have you got any comparative studies between, to compare CBTI versus Gestalt therapy or Gestalt approach? Or not so such studies exist nowadays?
Well, with my research projects on nightmare treatment, in the study design as it was funded, was that everybody all the participants would participate in a Gestalt group therapy, which was led by a colleague of mine, because of course I couldn't do that as well. And one of those groups also was introduced to a lucid dreaming training program. Now, that's of course not CBTI, but it has behavioral aspects quite a bit. And I was even, one of the reviewers of the project kind of was questioning, well, how could you expect a difference between just Gestalt therapy and Gestalt therapy with add-on of lucid dreaming training program? Because there's both psychological approaches. But at that time, I thought, I had a pragmatic thought, and the pragmatic thought was, well, we have money for that, and everybody should, all the participants should get something, not just waitlist. So, and of course, I was convinced that the lucid dreaming training program would show an extra significance to the Gestalt therapy. And at the end, and I can say this in a nutshell, I think that actually both together was what caused the efficiency of our results, because we found, of course, that lucid dreaming is a very potent approach for reducing the nightmare frequency. Now, what we have, this was 2002, yeah? But now, and then about 10 years later or so, we have a new diagnostic manual, and what we were looking at then was the the nightmare disorder, what is now called nightmare disorder. At that time, it wasn't described as such. So people had to suffer from nightmares 3 times a week and were avoiding sleeping because of that. So because I say that because I mentioned that because others have tried to use lucid dreaming for nightmare treatment before. I think Frank Galvin and a colleague from the Netherlands, and they were not successful in showing that lucid dreaming was a potent nightmare treatment. And I think that Gestalt basic approach, which implicitly teaches people what to make of dreams, how to understand the dream process and all, was very helpful for that. Then lucid dreaming on this basis was, so to say, fruitful in then overcoming nightmares. I wouldn't say that Gestalt is sort of competing with CBTI. Not at all. It's just very different, and it gives people understanding overall for what the psyche might be, what psychology is, how to understand sleep, how to understand dreaming, how to understand psychodynamics or start to understand psychodynamics. I mean, I wouldn't say I can't understand fully psychodynamics by now, but it's such a huge field. But gives them some tools in how to approach people in a psychotherapeutic setting that is productive. And that then, if you add, say, CBTI or lucid dreaming, which we do, because of course dream work is one of the 4 pillars that have been integrated in the Gestalt approach in sleep coaching, that then can unfold fully. Because, you know, like for a while, at least in Austria, I think in Germany as well, NLP was very fashionable, neuro-linguistic programming. And that came together from researchers who would research family therapy, Gestalt therapy, and hypnotherapy in California. And they wanted to filter out what are the most effective techniques. And then they bundled those techniques and taught them. And it is questionable how valuable that really was. Even though they bundled the most efficient techniques, but they didn't offer a basis for understanding, so people could think about aspects of perception of develop, as we call it in German, a Haltung, also develop a, how should I say, an understanding, a principal understanding of psychodynamics. It doesn't quite meet what I wanted to express with Haltung, but it is sort of basic education on psychological processes, including perception, and including what being human means. I mean, I know that's very long, but we can talk about Gestalt another time, please. It might be helpful. But I think people want to have some kind of a concept to understand techniques and what's happening to them with Gestalt, with a psychotherapeutic process, and how they can understand and make sense of it. And Gestalt allows for that. And so we already have kind of covered sleep coaching, because we have talked about Gestalt. We have talked about CBTI, which is a very main factor in sleep coaching. I do want to talk about sleep education per se as one pillar for sleep coaching, even though it belongs also to CBTI. But we are teaching sleep coaching in a bigger frame. Sleep education. I'm sorry. Sleep education in sleep coaching is very important, and it has it needs to be updated all the time. And for us, of course, also a sleep coach is not only supposed to be trained in the basics of sleep research, but, and that is what we teach at the Medical University in Vienna in our sleep coaching master program, to coming out to be soon in this fall, hopefully, latest next spring. We're talking 2021 to 2021 or 2022. The sleep coach needs more than basic knowledge about sleep education. And so we are lucky that we are able to invite the specialists of the field of sleep and neurology. Brigitte Högel, for instance, is the teacher for sleep and neurology in our sleep coaching approach. Or sleep and psychiatry, of course, you know, they need to, even though they're not going to prescribe, probably, well, depends if it's an MD attending this training program, but even if they don't prescribe medication for sleep, they need to know which medication is out there and how the medication works in principle. So we get and then of course we have the pediatric aspects, but conveyed by the specialists to our sleep coaches, and of course pulmonologists for the obstructive sleep apnea, or ear, nose, throat
ENT.
doctors.
Yeah.
Sorry?
ENT doctor.
ENT doctors, thank you. Yeah, because so the sleep education is very broad in sleep coaching, broader than for the CBTI, but in CBTI it's also very important. And those aspects, of course, are introduced in sleep coaching as well. So, Gestalttherapy is the basics, sleep education in a broad sense, a CBTI in a broad sense, very important sense, but then also relaxation techniques, of course, up to medical hypnosis. And also we invite the specialists or also working at the medical hospital to give an idea of what medical hypnosis is, because of course in an afternoon you cannot learn what medical hypnosis is. We only can get an impression, and that's very important and necessary. And number 4, as a fourth pillar for sleep coaching, of course, dream work overall. I've talked about the nightmare treatment before with lucid dreaming, but also, of course, with image rehearsal therapy, which has also been evidence-based, proven to be a very effective approach for nightmare treatment. And we honor that and integrate that as well, of course. And of course, it was developed by Barry Krakow. Tony Zadra is working with him as well. So those are the pioneers there. And but dream work in general, meaning, of course, we mentioned the value of keeping a dream journal, a sleep and dream journal, but we also regard dreams as a great inspiration. But of course, the sleep coaching program is taking now 2 years, but still not enough time to really address it all. So this can also be given a bit of an impression of what dream work is capable of. But we hope that we inspire people for more with that. Let alone the fact that if for the people who wake up during the night and they have difficulties falling back asleep, of course, remembering, say, a previous dream is very helpful, because if they manage to enter through imagination the dream world, so to say, they have entered the world of sleep, of course. So this is in a nutshell what sleep coaching is.
And do you usually work with a patient individually within the sleep coaching program, or as a group therapy?
Actually, both. we do individual. We are open to and offer individual sessions, single sessions. We would, of course, work in groups. I'm a big fan of group work. I think the group is itself inspiring each other, so to say, beyond the effect of the person who's leading the group. Way beyond, very valuable. Also something from Gestalt therapy, of course. But we also teach seminars in companies and institutions. And what I like to, well, that might be just my personal take, but also coming from Gestalt, we believe that the contact or the sort of relationship between the trainer, the therapist, and the client is what is really most effective for whatever you do, and a necessary basis. So I have the ambition in my seminars, or we have the ambition in our seminars, to be able to make at least some contact with each member of the group. So I like to work in groups not bigger than 12 participants. So.
And how long does it take the course? You mentioned 6 weeks, if I understand correctly. But is it the rule, or do some patients need less time or more time?
In a single, also when it's the setting of single sessions, I usually introduce that sleep coaching should have had a positive effect at least after the third or fourth session. And if it doesn't, well, maybe another approach should be looked for. Sometimes it's in these sessions, the result is that we have maybe psychotherapeutic processes recommended. So then we would refer our clients to a psychotherapist, say. But what I haven't mentioned before is that sleep coaching also has the role of sort of being a interface for the client who have sleep issues. So the first 1 or 2 sessions also need to find out whether the client needs to be referred and to whom the client needs to be referred, if he needs to be referred, or she. So if there is, of course, in our first sessions, if it becomes clear that that might be a neurological problem, RBD, RLS, or the I don't know if you don't. I'm not sure if this might be an epilepsy or the narcolepsy. Of course, you need to refer to a neurological lab. So, or of course, if there is very often not undiagnosed breathing problems, of course, we need to refer to the right sleep labs for the OSA or to the
ENT.
Sorry. So this is necessary. This is what we convey in the sleep coaching, because we need to be a network as well and know the sleep lab for neurology, the sleep lab for pulmonology, and so forth, or psychotherapists.
Do the patients sometimes need another session, I mean, another course of sleep coaching, like they already completed one course and it was successful and efficient, and then after some time, do they come again? Do they need to come back to you?
Yeah. I'm not saying that everybody has improved, but most people do. And they often want more later. Say, they apply a few things because, you know, of course, in 4 sessions, 6 sessions, you cannot convey everything. And other things, other perspectives might come up, or they might be interesting for a client. So they, or then another life situation comes up. And of course, people come back, yes. And they want sort of a follow-up, 1, 2, 3 sessions. Same with the seminars that we teach at the companies. We always find it as it's more efficient if you do. We teach that if possible in a 2-day program. And then if we could have a follow-up, say 6 months later, when things have been implemented in the daily life, say, or have improved, but there are still more questions or issues have come up with sleep and dreams. They improve very much. That's very helpful for people to have a follow-up after 4 or 6 months. So to implement it and to strengthen the long-term effect. Absolutely.
I think that every doctor, every specialist, sleep specialist sometimes meets a difficult patient, a complex patient. Do you have non-responders?
Yes, yes, of course. Sure. We have non-responders as well.
And what are the predictors for non-response?
Well, to tell you the truth, the non-responders that I have for the sleep coaching have been mostly women in menopause. It seems that the hormonal changes and the physical changes are so strong, even though I tell them that they have to approach that, and they often refuse to take medication for the symptoms of menopause. Of course, the changes are so strong that even though the sleep coaching can help only a little bit with the relaxation, but that then people are already so frustrated that they haven't been improving, so that they kind of are quite impatient with the effects. Because also with sleep coaching, I cannot guarantee that from one to the next session, the person change from not sleeping into sleeping fantastically. No. Yeah, yes. That's very important. That comes from Gestalt, that to understand that the improvement is a process, and it is where one has to be already valuing and be very happy about first changes for the better, because that helps more changes for the better eventually. So to turn the process into a productive process, the vicious cycle from what we have with sleep problems often into a dynamically productive cycle for the patient, so that it can get better and better and better eventually. Yeah, if they are able to implement a better sleep behavior, or the better relaxation, or if they can address the hyperarousal, and or if they improve the dream world and so forth. Yes. Whatever some person's issues are, because it's what we believe in sleep coaching as well is sleep is a very even though there are many similarities amongst people, but still sleep is a very individual activity. And of course, I consciously say activity because, of course, the impression is that we're not active, but of course, our system has to switch and be active in another way for sleep and for cleaning out whatever needs to be cleaned or restored, whatever. Yeah. And what I forgot to mention as well is, and that is also belongs to Gestalt, but is overall important, of course, that the most efficient and important feature of sleep coaching and CBTI, and I think everything we do in the ESRS and the Sleep Research Society is overall to raise consciousness about sleep. And that how I teach people how important sleep is, and that it is really paying off to pay attention towards sleep amongst the pandemic right now. the world has forgotten that sleep restores our immune system, and that has to be changed, definitely.
Yes, that's true. And by the way, about pandemic, have you applied the sleep coaching technique in COVID related insomnia or during COVID pandemic? And do you observe any changes in response or in the techniques you have to apply in people who suffer from COVID and suffer from insomnia during pandemic?
Well, that's a very good question. Thank you, Ludmila. But for us, it's already a little bit too early. Yeah. We are now involved, as you know, luckily and fantastically in the ICOS 2, where we are looking at long-term consequences of also, amongst other things, long-term consequences of COVID and long COVID regarding sleep and dreams. And that will be very interesting because for the first time, we will have a comprehensive, huge epidemiological study over continents again, regarding also sleep and sleep patterns in connection with a disease, with a medical situation. And that is I'm very much looking forward to those results. This will be very, very exciting. So what I can say is that we have started to assess sleep in the context of COVID. But we, of course, have come out with recommendations for the public at the very beginning, the CPDI group and also our institute, just for the Austrians. But we have not had enough patients yet who have insomnia because, or the sleep problems or the fatigue because of COVID, where I could say that there are specifics for the treatment of the insomnia of COVID patients. But my observations are that COVID patients, the first few nights, if it's a mild COVID, are connected to sleep problems, and after that, some have told me that they slept much longer and much more, and that they were very tired during the day. So I think there is also differences, say, between the type of COVID disease that the patients develop related to sleep as well. And dreams. Dreams might be very important for COVID as well. And what is now an issue, I think, is we need to tell the world that before they get the vaccination, they should emphasize their sleep before and after, so that the immune system can fully unfold and
that's true.
And help with the application of the vaccination.
And I think there are plenty of questions which everyone would love to ask you. I have one more. If the person says that he or she doesn't have any dreams, do you still have any space for working with dreams? Or in these cases, the part of dream work is not applicable?
See, our ingredients or pillars of sleep coachings are a suggestion, and that comes also from Gestalt. So I'm glad we're talking implicitly about what Gestalt is about. We are not applying it all at once. We are asking the patient, what is it that you would like to do? What speaks to you? What are your preferences? Let's start with what you like the most. And so if somebody says, well, I'm not interested in dream work, well, that's fine. There are many other ways to improve the sleep, but dream work is one. And if people are interested, and if they have a sort of a dream nerve, if you wish, it's fine. It's great. It's good to work with them. But if they don't, no, of course not. We don't have to apply it all. We have as sleep coaches, we have a repertoire, and we apply from that repertoire what seems to be for that patient. And the patient, we trust that the patient knows, And we trust that they are at the end, really, at the end of the day, they're best sleep specialists. But we have to help them find out about that.
So it sounds like a very personalized approach. With all the techniques you have, you can make it a very personalized.
It is very personalized, yes, it is, absolutely.
And last but not least question. Since these several decades, more than 20 years of your experience with sleep coaching, do you observe any changes in characteristics in complaints of the patients you see and in their response to this sleep coaching approach, and any updates you are continuously doing with this sleep coaching technique? Maybe it's a bit complex question, but in general, I would say, what is the dynamics of the sleep coaching approach within these 2-3 decades of your experience?
Well, thank you so much for Ludmila. That's a very inspiring question and a great topic for somebody who would like to write a book, I think. Meaning, what kind of sleep expressions come with a particular zeitgeist? And I'm sure that some have written about it, but I think we could go in depth with that also for the last 20 to 30 years. And what I see, I'm not sure if I see such a change in the sleep disorders per se. I see kind of in my practice, I don't know, several years ago, I had many people who come for looking for help with RBD, which was interesting to me to work with. Then for a while, I had many patients with parasomnias, sleepwalking, sleep talking, nightmares, of course. And of course, insomnia is sort of a continuous complaint, of course, that people are searching help for. But socially, to me, it seems that yes, people have woken up to sleep, so to say, and are more interested. And what happened before the pandemic was that people started to overreact a little bit in my mind, meaning that they found sleep and sleep habits to be what do you call it? Increase sleep efficiency, or the sleep your own efficiency. So trying to approach sleep to have better performance in sports and better performance in the work field and so forth. You know what I mean? Yeah. With all the gimmicks and app gadgets and whatnot. Also the sleep watch this and sleep watch that, and have they claim that they measure heartbeat, and then from the heartbeat they claim that they can measure the sleep stages and things like that. So the industry has found sleep. So that's for sure within the last 3-5 years before the pandemic. I think it now has kind of withdrawn a little bit. Other things are more important than sleep efficiency, than self-efficiency. Self-efficiency, I think, is the word that I was looking for. Yeah. Is that addressing the question that you...
Yes, I think, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for this interesting discussion and sharing your experience and your insights in sleep coaching and how to help people with sleep disorders.
Ludmila, my pleasure. Thank you for asking me and for inviting me here. And I hope I could provide some inspiration for the colleagues and the younger generation of sleep specialists in the world. Thank you.